better artillery, and better trained soldiers because of West Point. Who's trained at West Point? Beginning in 1821, what did the United States create at West Point? It's a fort. It's still there today.
It's an army.
Yeah, the Military Academy for Army Officers. About 10 years later, they would do a Naval Academy at Annapolis, Maryland. Then after World War II, they do an Air Force Academy at Colorado Springs. I have a former student from a couple years ago at Colorado at Air Force Academy and one at West Point right now. Very, very long recommendation form. They demand a lot. Yeah. Okay, this is a battle where Taylor and the American Army entered into Mexico, hoping just to beat them in one big battle. Mexico would just give us California. And Taylor turned out to be a very, well, he was already a good general. He'd been in the Army since the War of 1812. He was beloved by his men. He didn't care so much about having perfect uniforms, having spit-shine shoes, or for that matter, they all had brass buckles, brass buttons. He didn't care if they were shined or not. Heck, in battle, he wore a red flannel shirt and a straw hat. That's what he wore. All he cared about was fighting. And he had a great nickname in the legacy of Old Hickory. His nickname was? That was Polk, but good guess. Oh, rough and ready. Rough and ready. He's ready to fight. That's Zachary Taylor. And Monterey, battle raged back and forth, but at the end of the battle was fought off and on for 3 days, but at the end of the battle, the United States won. The United States won at Monterey. Taylor immediately became a hero. This would spur even more people volunteering to fight in the Army, and a problem for Polk. Before we get to that problem, let's get back to Mexico. So Mexico has a little dictatorship of about 3 colonels and a general. They ousted Santa Anna. Santa Anna's back in Cuba. Now, even before the Battle of Monterey took place, Santa Anna sent word up to the United States, to Washington, D.C., telling President Polk, you help me go back to Mexico City. I'll take power and I'll sell you at a great price, California. We'll end the war. Well, what the heck? While this battle was being fought, the U.S. Navy was sending 2 ships down to get Santa Anna, gave him a lot of money too, and sent him to Mexico to go retake power. The battle had been fought, a big victory for Taylor. Santa Anna arrives and is treated like a conquering hero. He marches up the mountain to Mexico City. The army, it's a bloodless coup. They make Santa Anna dictator, and Santa Anna immediately vows to do what?
Destroy the United States.
Maybe not destroy them, but not drive them out of their country. Defeat the United States and reconquer what is truly Mexico. Boy, did the U.S. screw up. Santa Anna turned out to be a pretty competent general. With a little luck, he might have won the war. Before that, or sorry, while that's going, Polk is now very worried about old Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready is now a hero. And Rough and Ready, Taylor, is a Whig. Polk is a Democrat. Polk vowed to run 1 term. He wants a Democrat to replace him. He's thinking, oh good, there's another Whig general. Just like Harrison, they'll run Taylor. Mexico did not quit fighting. The realization hit, Mexico City's going to have to fall. Taylor should get command of this? No. He takes away Taylor's most experienced soldiers. Sorry, I gotta get the mouse over. Taylor's up here. They take his most experienced soldiers and to a place down here, give it to another general. He's left with nothing but raw recruits out here in the desert. We'll let another general do that. While that happened, Santa Anna organizes 7,000 troops and marches north. Taylor would face him with absolutely no trained soldiers and just a few trained officers. The battle would be, I'm having no trouble with this mouse. The Battle of Buena Vista, February 1847, Buena Vista. These lithographs were really popular. Wood carvings, printed, watercolor. Really popular this time, yes. Date, February 22nd to 23rd, 1847. All you need to know is 1847. You don't need to know the exact date. This battle was as close as you could get. The Mexicans attacked with incredible courage, but their junior officers were not very good. They didn't have as much artillery, and this next lithograph really shows it. They charged right into the teeth of American cannon firing canister. A new innovation in warfare and killing. It's amazing how good people become at killing each other. What's canister? That's actually a good guess because they would fire gas out of canisters, but it's pre-gas.
Like would it have like the can is like much like
A cylinder, steel cylinder about that big, like a big can.
Grape shot?
Yeah, even smaller than grape shot. Grape shot like balls about that big. Canister, imagine about 200 to 400 musket balls, all fired at once. They were firing at 10 paces into the Mexicans attacking. Just imagine what that did to their bodies. Just ripped them apart. They kept attacking, but finally they beat their army up. Santa Anna thought I had one shot, I just gotta go. At the end of the day, Buena Vista was a huge victory for the United States and Taylor. Ironically, this would propel Taylor to the White House. He would become president off of this victory. So with that, I like that lithograph. That was not all what Taylor would look like. He would have a flannel shirt on, and he was very brave, but he's not going to ride in front. Hey, shoot at me. But he was right there in the battle. So what of the invasion of Mexico City? Winfield Scott was given the command. Arguably one of the all-time greatest generals in American history, a hero of the War of 1812. He was considered the most competent and intelligent general in the United States Army. He would be command of the U.S. Army when the Civil War began, even though by then he was very old. He too was a Whig. But Taylor had that nickname, Old Rough and Ready, like Jackson, that fighter, that frontiersman. Winfield Scott's nickname? Old Fuss and Feathers. Old Fuss and Feathers doesn't quite carry the same emotional tie as Rough and Ready or Old Hickory. Fuss and Feathers, yes, he was a good general, but he wanted everyone to look perfect on the parade ground when they marched. Uniform was exactly right, buttons polished, everything perfect. And the men hated that. And so they give him an insult. So Polk's thinking, even if he wins, who's going to like old Fuss and Feathers? And so he had less than 10,000 men. And his plan was, this is actually a really risky plan. No military observer. There were a lot from Europe, kind of getting tricks, tips on war. Here, nobody thought he could land at the coast, a place called Veracruz, march through 2 mountain passes over 7,000 feet up, and attack Mexico City. He didn't have enough men to hold a supply line, so literally he had to live off the land. Just take off up the mountains. It's all or nothing. We look back today and we think just relative strength of Mexico and the United States should have no problem. The U.S. is a lot more powerful. Back then, the U.S. was a little more powerful, but they were much closer. A couple different tactics, maybe some lucky break for the Mexicans at 2 battles going up the pass by Delando, and then one we'll get to in a second. And they could have defeated Scott. And once again, we'd have a totally different course in history. So Scott turned out to be a very effective general and a little bit lucky. The battle we need to know, though, that's Veracruz, we're not going to talk about that one, is Chapultepec. The Battle of Chapultepec near an old Aztec fortress, the last mountain pass before Mexico City. It was a mountain with a Spanish fort built on the wreckage. They destroyed an Aztec temple and fort here. And this fort had to be taken, or the United States Army could not have got routed into Mexico City. And this was a long, day-and-a-half fight, bloody, and almost, oh gosh, so many of the generals who would become famous in the Civil War would fight at Chapultepec. Backtrack, almost forgot one person. At Buena Vista, even though most of Taylor's experienced soldiers were taken away, he did have one because it was his son-in-law. Zachary Taylor's son-in-law was a West Point graduate by the name of Jeff, who fought very well. at Buena Vista. Jefferson Davis would become what in 15 years? Have you heard the term Jefferson Davis before?
It's familiar, but I can't place it.
He would become the president of the Confederacy. The president of the Confederacy was Zachary Taylor's son-in-law. At least for then. Jefferson Davis's wife, Taylor's daughter, died in childbirth, which was really common. But back to this. At this battle, under Scott, you had such names as, I'm just getting named some really famous Civil War generals, like Braxton Bragg, George McClellan, George Meade, George Thomas. A lot of Georges at this time. I wonder why. George Washington might have something to do with it. Thomas Jackson, better known as Stonewall Jackson. A guy named Ulysses S. Grant. I hope you've heard of him. But one man that Scott actually mentioned in a dispatch, in a message back to Washington, D.C., commending him for bravery, a captain, who crawled around the Mexican lines and found a hole in the Mexican line. This is where it's showing them attacking up the hill that he found. Crawled around over 8 hours in over 100-degree heat. This man crawled around and found this spot to attack. His name is Robert E. Lee, who would be the most famous Confederate general in the Civil War. All were here, all at this battle. Chapultepec, once they found this back door and took the fortification, it fell, and the keys to Mexico City were Scott's. The next month, Scott entered Mexico City in September 1847 and conquered it. Sent back word to Polk, took about a month to get there. Polk was overjoyed, but he did not realize that Scott was in actual real trouble. Yeah, he held Mexico City, but Santa Anna took as much stuff out as he could, and he fled. Scott is in the city surrounded by thousands of enemies. He can't hold it. He's actually in a very precarious situation. Santa Anna was hoping to pull back and do to General Scott what the Russians did to what person in 1812? To Napoleon when Napoleon took Moscow. Napoleon couldn't hold it and had to retreat, and his army was destroyed. That's what Santa Anna hoped. It didn't work because Santa Anna was captured. Santa Anna could not leave his stuff behind. Some American cavalry patrolling north of Mexico City found this long wagon trail out in the wagon train out in the distance. Over 100 wagons, and it was all full of just Santa Anna's stuff. Wine, food, gold, paintings, jewels, tapestries, mistresses, and hundreds of wooden legs. Literally, there are wagons of just wooden legs and artificial legs. And American cavalry found this, rode up, took the whole thing, and Santa Anna. Santa Anna would have been smart and got the heck out of this. Scott would have had a hard time staying. And said Santa Anna's now captured. They brought him back, and now think about all these wagons filled with loot. What happened? It was liberated. Yeah, they went through and just took everything. Liberated all the wine, everything, and they got the wooden legs. These are great. They're out there playing, yes, baseball with the leg and all these kind of things. And they had all kinds of legs that Santa Anna had made for special occasions for show. So he had these fancy legs. Some had it gold plated, silver plated. Some were encrusted with diamonds and jewels. Guess what happened to those? Somebody took it. He had a solid gold leg, which I have no idea how you would use. I guess just to have. Be a little bit awkward. He had one leg that was a sword. And I'm still trying to figure out how that worked. Had this sheath, and I guess attached to it like a sword, so I guess like that. One step, and he had a cannon. So my guess is bong, and knock him right over. My assumption is he never used these things, but they took all of them. And yeah, it's true. They were out there playing baseball. A little different rules, but yeah. And Santa Anna was brought back. Now, one thing about these wooden legs, all the not valuable legs, just the basic legs, over 100 of them, an officer, a cavalry officer, somehow got these legs back to Veracruz, the harbor city, got them aboard a ship, and took them to Philadelphia. Got these legs back to his hometown. Now, what do you do with these legs? He wanted to make money. Do you remember I told you about the Tecumseh? What they did to his back?
Oh, yeah.
They cut little strips out of it. Tecumseh leather straps. Well, these are wooden legs. But what they did there is they carved toothpicks out of it. And it became the souvenir to have after the Mexican War. A Santa Ana toothpick. If you go to the Smithsonian Museum of American History, it's just in one of the little cases there, there's kind of this gnarled, pretty yucky piece of wood. It's a Santa Ana toothpick. And I think of toothpicks today, and it's just like a one-time use toothpick. Back then, they weren't like it. Does anyone just have a regular pencil? You have a regular pencil, and let's see real quick. Imagine a pencil about half this width, about this long, but about half this width. And what they would use is, a knife, and they would carve a point to it. They'd use that to pick their teeth. And then when it would dull, they would use it again. That's what toothpicks were. So about half this width. Same kind of thing. That became it. Santa Ana toothpicks. After the war, Santa Ana would be in and out of power for the next 15 years. In 1861, just as the American Civil War was beginning, Santa Ana was ousted from power. And ironically, he went to the United States. Lived in New York City. Kind of in exile. And yes, he had some money, but not enough. And so he tried to figure out something to sell. And that is when he came with something he brought with him from Mexico. Add a little sugar to it, and that's where you get chewing gum from Santa Ana. So back to this. Santa Ana's now captured. Scott's still in a precarious situation, but now they have Santa Ana. And what's going to be negotiated is the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. That's a little town north of Mexico City where they held Santa Ana. And this is the actual treaty. This is the man Polk sent to negotiate it. Polk tried to recall Tris. When Mexico City fell, Polk decided, I want the whole thing. He wanted to take all of Mexico. But Scott and Tris realized that was crazy, and they ignored it. That would have probably been a disaster, well, for both countries. What came out of this, glass negative, it's a big crack in the glass. That happened a lot. You put the glass negative in, and sometimes it would just snap when the picture was taken. The three components of the treaty. The U.S. got the Rio Grande as the border, the U.S. got California and New Mexico, and the U.S. paid $15 million for California and New Mexico. Got this, Emily? And $3.3 million in U.S. claims. Mexico owed $3.3 million to U.S. citizens. The Americans just paid it. The United States government. What the United States actually did is paid about $18.3 million. Okay, you're thinking, why did we pay when we won the war? Well, partially because Scott's in a precarious situation. But Polk and those who wanted the war, mostly Democrats at this time, didn't want it to look like just a war for conquest. We wanted to make it look like we were fighting for our border and they attacked us. And then we just happened to buy California and New Mexico. They wanted to make it look like the United States is not an imperial country. Now, everyone knew that's what this was. It was a war of conquest. But they wanted to at least say it wasn't. Now, this is what you have to write down. This area right here, California, New Mexico, some of you might be able to see it, had a name called the Mexican Cession. So for the next 4 years, it's going to be called the Mexican Cession. Cession is spelled C-E-S-S-I-O-N. Have you ever heard the term ceded, like they ceded something over? That's cession, what it means. That is the land the United States got from Mexico. Not Texas. Texas was already part of the Union. This is huge. Now, the big thing about this is that all started that issue of Texas, slavery in the territories. Will this have slavery? The Mexican Cession. The assumption was they had a long time to think about it, but just after war was declared, it was already being debated. The Wilmot Proviso. Obviously, you're not going to write all this down, so quickly write down the Wilmot Proviso, 1846. So this happened right after war was declared. Proviso is another term for amendment. So they added to, it says here, monies here and appropriated a money bill, a finance bill to pay for the war. David Wilmot proposed it. He was a Democrat. What state? Yeah. Quick read it. What is it? What does the Wilmot Proviso say? What does it say? No slavery where? Which means that, what did I call it? The Mexican session. Yeah, exactly right. No slavery. Involuntary servitude means this. Actually, it's it, except for prisoners. People being held in prison. Don't worry about that. No slavery in this territory. No slavery there. What does that term mean? So David Wilmot is what kind of person? He's a free soiler. He's a free soiler. He's a Democrat and a free soiler. And that shows you the divide in the Democratic Party. Even though a lot of them wanted this land, they're free soil. Here's the thing. Were there more northern members of the House or southern members of the House? Members of the House. Where are almost all the immigrants going? The north. The population of the north is growing much faster. There are more northern members of the House. This passed. It passed. It passed the House. But it's also got to pass what? The Senate. The Senate was balanced. And with a few northerners voting with the South, they stopped. It passed again in the House. It stopped again in the Senate. Abraham Lincoln would say that he voted on the Wilmot Proviso 47 times. Over and over again. It passed the House, failed in the Senate. Passed in the House. All you had to say was Wilmot, and you could get a fist fight. Wilmot was everything. Wilmot. That meant free soil. That became the issue of the time. And so, we have a presidential election, 1848. And in 1848, that's all everyone talked about. Wilmot, Wilmot, Wilmot. And by the way, Wilmot, I think it should be Wilmot. I can't help it. Maybe because of Montana. It should be M-O-N-T. Yeah. The election of 1848, then, is everybody trying to avoid Wilmot because it's so controversial. Here are the Whigs. Who's this guy? Oh, rough and ready. Zachary Taylor actually never really cared about being president, but it was like, you can be president. He's like, well, and then they also said, and Polk will be mad. I'll do it. So, Zachary Taylor, the war hero, will be run for president. He's a Southern. He actually has a plantation in Louisiana. His running mate, the man the Whig chose to be vice president, you have to get him. Normally we don't talk about vice president. That's a bad omen, isn't it? Millard Fillmore. He was a Northerner. He was a Northerner. They used different regions. Southerner and a Northerner, just like Harris, William Henry Harrison and Tyler are Southerner. This will happen a lot in history. John Kennedy from Massachusetts will have Lyndon Johnson from Texas. It's pretty common to get both North and South support. Not as, with modern media, maybe not as much today, but it still does happen. His position on Wilmot or everything else was, I'm a war hero. What do you believe about Wilmot? The Battle of Buena Vista. What about slaving the territories? Monterey. What about the tariff? Old rough and ready. Nothing. Just war hero. That's it. War hero, vote for me, I won the war. War, we won, yay. He had no position. even more vague than the log cabin campaign of William Henry Harrison. In secret, though. They kind of a whispering thing. You can't tell people this. He's a Whig who support Whig programs. That's what they said in the North. In the South, they said, he's a plantation owner. You can trust him. But in public, point of this. The Democrats are split, almost fatal, over Wilmot. The Main Street Democrats would nominate Lewis Cass. Doesn't he look like, I'm trying to say, like a carp? Maybe an angry frog? Look at that face. They drew that. They wanted the mouth this way. Can anyone even do that? I mean, I can't even make my face. Doesn't work. Lewis Cass. And the Democrats tried to sidestep with something called popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty let the people of the territories decide. Remember, sovereignty means power. Let the people of the territories decide. That's what they did in 1848. And popular sovereignty is going to be around for the next 13 years until the Civil War began. This hope that we'll let the voters decide. Now, it actually doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you're going to let the people decide, that means you have to open it up to everybody. That means people with slaves. It won't work. It's a scam. It sounds democratic, but nobody liked it. Nobody liked popular sovereignty. He was from Michigan. But Free Soil Democrats formed their own party, the Free Soil Party. They got the old Liberty Party, they joined with them, and there's significantly more Free Soilers than there were abolitionists. And they nominated former President Martin Van Buren. Back in 1844, the Southerners said, we can't trust him, and they turned out to be correct. He was a Free Soiler. So Van Buren, and he's going to take a lot of votes away from Northern, he's going to take away a lot of Northern Democratic voters. Third parties do that. Don't write them down. Just telling you this is John Quincy Adams' son, Charles Adams. That is an intense glare. That's a little scary face he's looking at you. And not only that, look at that head. That's not a forehead. Yeah, that's a 5, 6, maybe a 7 head, right? So with that, everybody tried to avoid Wilmot, which was, of course, the biggest issue. But because of the Free Soil Party, especially in New York, Taylor won. Taylor won. Free Soilers got 10%. Cass might have won if the Free Soil Party hadn't entered. We don't know. We can't say that for certain. We do want President Carter, because that's what he looks like to me in that picture. Yes, Mike. Yeah. And this one, they took almost certainly Democratic votes, because they were Democratic Free Soilers. No strong ones. We have very minor, small ones. Yeah. Now, the Libertarians in Montana actually do get some votes. Almost certainly in 2012, Libertarians, which made about 4% of the vote for governor, if they would have voted, if they would not have been a Libertarian candidate, they would have almost all voted Republican, and Bullitt would not have been voted. So almost certainly Libertarians took away the votes of Republicans. But yeah, it's nationwide, never more. No, they could just do vote enough to take away the votes from somebody else. Because we have a winner take all. Taylor is president, and Taylor has no idea what he wants to do. He doesn't know. He didn't really want to be president except to get polk and the fact that, hey, you should be president. Yes, I should. But everybody thought he had a lot of time. There's not going to be a lot of people moving into California quite yet. Or will there? When the election was going on, that summer at a place called Sutters Mill, northwest of northwest of San Francisco, what was discovered? Gold. There are guys doing oh my God, shooting It's not panning, it's you sluice, thank you. Panning similar thing, and you can see it pans. See the pans? Gold was discovered in California at Sutters Mill. 1848. News got back in that fall. Gold, we're all going to be rich. Who went to California the next year? All these great people just had enough money to make it there. They're not slaveholders. They're just regular people going over to try to get rich. A lot of them from the north, thinking they would get rich quick in California. What do they call them since so many came that year? The 49ers. That's why they're called the 49ers, because they all came in 1849. I love this. Go to California and get rich. Has the new technology of the steamship. They don't go around Latin America. What do? Yeah, Nicaragua. Nicaragua is wider than, let's say, Panama, but it's a lot flatter. A lot flatter. And how do you get your stuff across? 200 jackasses. Look at the cost. Different world, huh?
What was the cost?
$90.
There it is.
Now remember, $90 then is a heck of a lot different than $90 today. Yeah, $90 was. We're talking tens of thousands, maybe 15 to 20,000. Yeah, so you had to have a little bit of money, or you went to debt. But a lot of people could do it because you're in California. How are they going to collect the debt? You're in California. People would never do that, would they? No. So, excuse me while I cough up a lung. All right, I'm better. So now, this comes immediately. By the end of 1849, California has more than enough people to become a state. More than enough. What are we going to do? They want to become a state now. And what kind of state? Slave or free? Free. Now. You can see it with, okay, we have all these issues building up, and all of a sudden Texas, and then the war, and then boom, California's a free state, and everything exploded. That's when you have members of Congress bringing pistols and knives to the floor of Congress. Amazing how fast it happened. We're coming up to these are all crises, but 1850. How did it get there? That is where I like to stop right here, and that's why I went back to chapter 12 to talk a little bit about slavery. We've already talked a lot about slavery, so I know a lot of this, some of this we reviewed, but let's go back, new heading. Slavery in America. This is from an anti-slavery journal, Slavery in America. So what was the situation in slavery? What was going on? More importantly, why was the South so absolutely concerned about slavery that it was going to be taken away? Okay, this is an abolitionist, it started in Britain, but the American Anti-Slavery Association would use the same picture. And am I not a man and a brother? The idea is to get rid of slavery by implying that they're men. We can't enslave people who are men, humans. But it shows some of the contradictions in the anti-slavery movement. Yeah, when I was in school, and I was told by my teachers, and it's implied that people who were in the anti-slavery movement wanted somehow freedom and equality. No, they wanted to get rid of slavery, but they did not believe in equality, and this picture shows it really well. Here he is pleading, praying to someone to free him. Who's he? Who? To whom? Now, this master's not going to let him go. You know, I mean, I know what you're saying, but they're not going to let him go. So it's to somebody else. To whom? To what kind of people? Who are what? They're in the north and what? White. Only white people can give me freedom. Only white people have that power. That's saying what? Even when free, what are they?
Lesson. Lesson.
Yeah. At least they're now men and brothers, but still lesser. And so it shows that contradiction. A lot of the anti-slavery groups, Abraham Lincoln was like this. Thought they should be freed, and then what happened to them? Yeah, sent to Africa. And virtually all were born in the U.S., so yeah.
So why couldn't we just make Texas a slave state and California a free state? Even have
isn't that what they did?
Well,
In Texas?
Texas was already in the Union as a slave state. But as they saw, California, which was probably the best of all the Mexican section, they thought the rest was an absolute desert. No one's going to bring slaves into Arizona because it's a desert, you can't grow anything. And so the people who wanted slavery are thinking, we need California because it's the only place that's good for plantation agriculture. California's dry, but they knew with irrigation it could be very lush, at least for a while. That's a good question, but think about Arizona, not really, except for a couple river bottoms. So, a couple of dates just to review, 1617 or 1619, depending on which you read, but for sure by 1619, the first African slaves were brought to English colonies in America. Yeah.
Isn't Utah part of Utah?
And we'll come back to Utah. The Mormons were very worried. Very worried. Like in thinking we might have to go to Samoa. Seriously, we might have to get that tribe. I'll tell you that story in the compromise 1850. Yeah, they were like, uh-oh. We're gonna live. First African slaves were here. What was the crop? Tobacco, yeah. But 1676 is that key turning point year, Bacon's Rebellion. And to make sure that the lower class, regardless of color, didn't unify, what laws would come out of Bacon's Rebellion that every slave state would want from then on? Slave codes, very good. What's the most important of the slave codes? Fornication laws, which made slavery permanent. Slavery now is dependent upon the servitude of whom? Servitude means the condition of servitude, whether or not they're slave or free. What person? Why?
Yes.
Say it again.
The master.
Not the master's free, so you would be free then.
The mom.
The mom, yeah. If the mother is a slave, you're a slave. Therefore, perpetuating permanent slavery. That came out of Bacon's Rebellion. And so, that is actually Nathaniel Bacon, supposedly. Yeah, it's full. So, in 1808, we have the slave trade. The slave trade was banned in 1808. Jefferson signed the bill. Remember, the Constitution said you can't touch it for 20 years. And his plan, just to review, was diffusion. This is actually an anti-slavery journal showing a tight packing ship. They thought slavery would spread out and get rid of it, but the other thing was, if they banned the slave trade, then the United States could take the moral high ground. The United States could say, okay, we have slavery, so we accept that the slaves are here to stay. But we no longer condone the horrific Middle Passage. You remember the Middle Passage? The Middle Passage was the route from Africa to the New World. And this map shows it pretty good. Anywhere from 11 to 15 million souls were brought over. The disruption caused by the slave trade here, Africa has never recovered. Never, to this day. Because they were so weakened that allowed colonization and exploitation by France and Britain especially. Never recovered. Most went to Brazil or the Caribbean. 0.5 million or so went to what is now the United States, or was the United States. Maybe another 0.5 million came from Latin America and were sold up into the United States. But when the Civil War began, there were 4 million slaves in the United States. And virtually all of them were born in the United States. Virtually all. And so when they said send them back, because they said send them back to Africa, well, they lived in the United States probably 2 or 3 generations. And so the Middle Passage, though, was absolute hell on earth. And this way, the United States after 1808 could say, see, we're not doing this trade anymore. We are now civilizing the slaves. And to give you a little context of why it's so horrific, like I said before, this is what we call a tight packing ship. And this was done, very famous picture, lay as many as possible, shoulder to shoulder. If there's more than one deck, as many as possible. You need about 3 foot high ceilings, so you can pack as many as possible. Here's another shot of it. This is then chaining down cargo in the middle of the night. Let me tell you something about the slave trade. What makes it so horrific, I'm not designing every part, of course, is horrible. But this is capitalism. This is making money. What is capital? Do you remember what capital was? Just the definition of capital. The means of production. So it's not quite factories yet, but for the people doing the slave trade, what is their capital? Now, the slaves are what they're selling. So the capital is what? The ship. Any square inch, any inch of that boat that does not have a human on it, they're losing money. And they can't maximize profits. So what do? Pack as many on as possible. That would be used a lot. That was relatively uncommon. Another thing would be called cramping, and that'd be the most common. See what they would do? Pack them in this way. Or sitting, get as many human beings as possible on board, maximizing profits. And that's when this gets scary. We're talking about human life and treating people with unspeakable cruelty, but now justifying it because it's business. It's just making money. It's business. Food. I'll tell you real fast for the government so I don't forget. Just listen. I know. Just deal with me. Listen. Food takes up room. And so what they did is they would rather put more humans on board with the idea of what's going to happen as they take the 2-month voyage across. As they die, you throw them overboard. How much food do you need? So they planned it out. As the voyage goes on, they need less food. And if they miscalculated, you know what they would do? Throw them overboard. All right, some of you did not give me that Zen assignment. You don't get to me tomorrow, you won't give me credit. Yeah, we're talking. Tell me stories.
Justification or you
No, I don't care. I'm just telling you.
No, I'm new.
Okay. No, I don't want any more stories.
I'm not giving you any stories. I'm doing good in fun.
Yeah.
Can I take the,
Which one do you want to take? Do you want to take the last test, the regular test?
long one, the one that's on like,
Yeah. So 9, 10, 11.
or 10, 11, or, yeah.
What about the Industrial Revolution? Okay, let's do that. It's got in the hallway? Yeah, feel bad you missed 2 tests.
What other just say? What other test asked?
Oh no, you just missed one. No, forget. No, you missed one.
What did I do?
You're fine.
What did I miss? Okay.
I did not mean to say it that way. I blame Bridger. Bridger got me flustered. Thanks a lot, Bridger.
You're scaring me. I don't know how to keep it going.
One
You're always
second.
on crutches. Every time I see you, since like sophomore year, you've always been hurt. Always.
I'm sorry, it's not necessarily my fault.
Look what I'm learning how to do, Mr. Partridge. But she did do that.
Why are you doing that?
Doran.
Huh?
Doran.
I was wondering why, because we had another student doing it for the English class. Or was it creative writing?
Creative writing. Izzy's probably doing it
You
too.
have to miss your English.
Yeah,
Creative
English class I
writing.
had last year. We had to
Wait.
do ready?
Creative writing. I haven't shot for English. No, it's in the elective.
In English, you're using creative writing.
English classes.
Y'all
I'm
hold
trying
in
to
honors English. Why?
Yeah, why are you doing that? Okay, creative writing, we literally go to the library, we get one assignment, we write like any crap comes out of our head.
Don't worry about this. Any free.
Get points.
All right.
Reading novels.
Let's get back to Jonestown. We're going to make a disturbing turn.
What?
think it got disturbing when they would like stay awake for 6 hours.
You have no idea.
Well, and he had the weirdest part so far is that that lady had a monkey that hung itself, and he just happened to have 2 monkeys.
That is really weird, isn't it? Here I am selling monkeys. And the staying awake, isn't that just amazing?
I was working on a presentation last night.
Oh, yeah, I didn't do it. Oh.
What?
I was working on a presentation, and the parents were like, what are you looking at? I'm like, on the screen. I'm like, no, it's.
I don't know how you do it.
So great, now they're gonna be mad at me. Yeah.
Our presentation is due tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a paper.
Yeah.
I was trying to get pictures from my grandma about the whole Mesa thing, and I don't know if I'll have them for my slide.
Come on. Do you have your? What I'm gonna do? Everybody, listen up. Have you lost your mind?
I'll crochet that.
Don't. All right. I'm giving you one more day.
Oh, heck.
Okay? No, you're due today. Some people. What I would like is this. I want the paper tomorrow, but we won't start the presentations until Thursday. It's going to take a little bit longer. I keep on forgetting about we have this short periods on Monday, so we couldn't watch a bunch of this week off. So it's going to bleed into Wednesday. So that's why I was going to.
It's better than last year.
What about last year?
Or would you rather have that nice long period that no
Oh, it is better, but I'm trying to think that was their
to make us hate less, but it's like why they make fast prices high at the top. It's
yeah,
oh you're high.
exactly. So you think as bad as this Monday thing is, it's better than it was before, right? All right, here we go. So let's get back to Jonestown. And Bridget brought up a good point. That is really creepy. The working forever. What can you do if you're working forever? What can you do? Nothing. And have you ever gone a long time without sleep?
Yeah,
really
that is
long time.
I've not gone 6 days though.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Mine's like
3 days?
Wait, maybe that was more than 1 day.
And pretty soon after a day of not sleeping, what happens?
I find 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I once didn't sleep for a year and a half.
It's smart.
Just work for the church. How long is that woman away? Did you catch that?
6 days.
Well, then think about it for a second, then you can't think. And you are really open to suggestion. That's one of the ways they torture people. You keep them awake for a few days and they'll do anything you tell them to. They'll say anything you want. It just destroys the body. Sleep deprivation is a torture. You manipulate people. They don't know what reality is.
You drive your time away too much longer. You drive
It's going.
I'm like, stay awake 2 days.
I know Mythbusters have that, and I actually saw that episode and it was a good one. But I think there's different degrees of drama.
I actually don't know.
But what they did is like buzz driving. You're only really bad, super exhausted driving. That was good. I like Mythbusters. All right. When we next semester we do I do something called conspiracy. We do conspiracies, and we do watch one Mythbusters.
Oh, conspiracies are so funny.
Well, they're great. It's conspiracies. That's a really fun.
My grandma's conspiracy.
No.
It's about 9/11.
Is that go away? Is it Nicole?
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah, sure. To be later our class. All right. So the papers are due tomorrow, but the presentations will not start till Thursday. So let's go ahead and get going on. Nicole, could you get the lights, please? You just sat down. You're not really comfortable. Did I turn it on? Shoot. The remote works. Oh my God, I know it's so little.
That's where those half the teachers are.
It's the remote for the not new one. It's actually not new, it's the same content.
They gave you the remote, but not
They did, but it's he asked me if I could burn off this light bulb. This light bulb is so expensive.
Yeah.
that would suck. I want to use it.
Well, and it's not new.
It's
It was at the May Butler Center where the school administration is, and when they get brand new ones. The teachers, the one who actually has to deal with the students, they get the bad stuff. Yes.
Relevant to Charles Manson, he's getting married.
Yeah, I saw that. He's getting married. And have you seen her?
She looks weird.
I mean, yeah, she's obviously a little different.
She's like 26 years old.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's like 70 or something.
Dude, I
He's getting married.
I'm sure it's true love, and they're not. She's not trying to get attention.
She's the creator of this fan page on the internet.
You can go and listen to Charles Manson's songs. I'll tell you later. When we get, do next.
Herman, big like
It's like a
People lifted Jim to a level of adoration because many believed that he had healed them of cancer. Many believed that he had saved their son or daughter from an automobile accident. There were many reasons for many people to admire, love, excuse, overlook much of what Jim did.
Okay. Warning.
I've been in the temple for just a few months. I was sent backstage in Los Angeles to get something for somebody. I don't remember what. And Jones happened to be coming out of his room, and he said, "Hi, Tim, how are you doing? How's it going? How do you like everything so far?" And oh, I like it a lot, and you know, it's really cool. I don't remember exactly. And he reached up and kind of patted the back of my neck, and he said, "I'll fuck you in the ass if you want." And I just kind of stammered, no, you know, no. And he said, "Well, you know, if you ever want that, that's okay. You know, just let me know and we'll do that."
Jim said that all of us were homosexuals. Everyone except, he was the only heterosexual on the planet. And that the women were all lesbians and the guys were all gay. And so anyone that showed any interest in sex was just compensating.
What he explained to each of us and in sermons was that sexual relationships were very selfish and they took away from the focus of the church, and that was to help others. Jim was not celibate. Nobody knew that until perhaps it was their time to find out. What he spoke from the pulpit wasn't what he did behind the scenes.
I remember one night, one of the brothers had stood up and said, "You know, I think everybody that wants Father to screw him in the butt, you need to take a enema first." I'm telling you the truth, man. I'm telling you the truth. And then the question went on, well, how many of you in here have had him to do that? And whether they were lying or just following suit, hands of the men just went up around the room. And I'm sitting there petrified because I'm like, is this what it's leading to that I'm supposed to get to? And I'm thinking, But I played it off like, okay, I'm being cool. Okay, if that's where they at, that's not where I'm at. Because I'm thinking, my wife, I'm happy with my wife. You know, so I'm concerned with her. With the sleep I'm not getting enough anyway.
One of the powerful things that Jim used to keep us to not think was that we were never really allowed to speak with one another. I'd look around and I'd say, am I the only one that feels this way? I I learned eventually not to say anything to anyone.
We had a lady who visited us a week ago here and was speaking to one at the door, and she was a member of a prominent church, a pastor's wife. And she said, I think that the poor should be made to control how many children they bring in the earth. You remember? Some leading scientists say we have to have euthanasia. Oh no. Oh no. Who's going to decide who and when a person's going to die? We must never allow that, because this is the kind of thing that ushers in the terror of a Hitler's Germany. We must not allow these kind of things to enter our consciousness.
My friends tell me that people's lives, 60% of people's lives were made on emotional decisions. 60% of your decisions based on logic, fact, and reason. And allow emotion to be the secondary motivator. And we were Star Trek fans. He and I were Star Trek fans. And he used to always say, just vulcanize yourself. Just vulcanize yourself.
We were celebrating New Year's Eve. There were about 120 people.
Jim started talking about our cause. And he said, this punch is going to be passed out to everybody here. We all drank our punch. And then, he said, you just drank poison. And we'll all die right here in the church together as one. The women were just screaming, oh no, my baby, my baby. And others just sat there. And all of a sudden Jim says, that wasn't poison you drank.
Jim said that this was a test of loyalty. He just wanted to see if we were truly committed to our cause, and that was how we would show it.
Well, it wasn't about our loyalty, because we were demonstrating loyalty all the time. Coming there, being there in the meetings, sitting, listening, supporting, working. And I thought it had a lot more to do with Jim's sense of rehearsal. Did he feel like he was potent and omnipotent enough to really get people to kill themselves when he said so? And that frightened the hell out of me.